Hello and welcome to downtown Indianapolis, WTHR Studios, the site for this one. This handsome gentleman beside me, Tony East of Locked On Pacers. He covers the team intimately. I'm Dominic Miranda, and today we're talking about kind of the Pacers' first half of their season. It's hard to believe, but we're at the All-Star break now. One half of the season to go as we push ahead towards the playoffs. Finally, for people like you especially who cover the team so intimately, a deep breath, sigh of relief as we gear up for the second half of the season. But Tony, just wanted to really go over how this first half of the season has gone for the Pacers. It's been a story of kind of some injuries, a slow start, a furious push in December and January, and now here we are at the All-Star break. What have you made of the Pacers' first half this season and kind of where the team is right now?
A deep breath for them, too. You know, with how long last season went, deep into May, with their playoff run, hopping into this year after the Olympics, they can use the break just as much as anybody else. And it's really been 2 seasons packed into their year so far, with their first 25 games going so poorly. 10-15 at that point, felt like a low point after a loss at home to Charlotte. Tyrese Halliburton meeting with coaches about what they can do better defensively, to now in fourth, 30-23, 20-8 since then. It's felt like 2 different seasons in one, where the first half was full of injuries, full of searching for answers. Why can't they play as good as last year, to being one of the best teams in the league since then, where they had a little break for the NBA Cup, and they've been much better since. They'll hope that this break can do the same thing for them.
What has been the shift on the floor? I know I caught up with Tyrese just a couple of weeks ago ahead of the game on WTHR. Remember, we have 3 of those remaining, by the way. But what has been that shift that I think at one point since December 6th, towards the end of January, there was something like 17-6, 10-2 in the month of January. What is it you saw on the floor that contributed to that positive shift for them to kind of get back square, get their feet underneath them, and now fourth in the East?
Capable defense. Rare to say that about the Pacers these last couple of years, but mid-December, they got Andrew Nembhard back on the floor. They got Ben Shepherd back from injury, and they just slightly tweaked some things and looked like a much, much better team. On that end, they were holding good teams to low scoring numbers, and they were using that to play their best style, which is getting out in the open floor, running in transition, passing, hitting guys for open shots. And when it all connects for this team, they look great on both ends. And when they finally defended, I think they were a top 10 defense in December, even better in January. They were really tough to beat because their high-level offense was still there. So being able to shift things on that end of the floor really transformed their season, and they've been searching for defensive answers for years. They finally found some, and it's clear how much that helped them, and it's something they'll have to keep chasing. They got a little bit lucky with how poorly opponents shot, but they can certainly keep riding like this. They could have a home court series in the playoffs.
Right, and that's the goal. That's what Tyrese Halliburton said. That was kind of the difference between last year's run. And that's a more sustainable style of play and more sustainable to winning as well, so than just relying on outscoring your opponent, as we've seen from this Pacers team in the past. Do you feel like the kind of thought and perspective going into this season was hammering home that defense, but capitalizing on that momentum of making an Eastern Conference Finals run? Have you felt that from season to season? It kind of sputtered out the start, but here we are. They're top 4 in the East.
A little bit. You know, they had the problem last year, like you said, where when they tried to outscore teams, they didn't have it. They could lose to anybody. Bad teams would beat them routinely last year. I think the second or third most losses to the worst teams of anybody in the NBA. This year, and even very recently, even as they haven't been playing as well heading into the break, they've been able to clean up against substandard competition because their defense gives them a better floor. And, you know, even dating back to media day, it's felt like that's the progress they wanted. Is post All-Star break last year, I think they were 19th in defense. It's still not good, but given how good they were on offense, it's good enough to win games.
Right.
And so finally having that success on that end of the floor, proof of concept that getting stops can lead to consistent wins for them. And, of course, they're still a great offensive team. Rick Carlisle's system, Tyrese Halliburton makes that all possible. They're winning a lot now, and I think they thought they could do this, and then they didn't for so long that it got a little worrisome. But finally, when everybody started clicking, it all came together.
All right, you mentioned Tyrese Halliburton. What have you made of his play this season? I know some fans are like, man, it just feels like sometimes he disappears from this offense. And we, of course, saw that. And now, of course, he was battling injury down the stretch last season, primarily in that playoff run for the Indiana Pacers. But that kind of reared its ugly head during that series, and it felt like we've kind of seen that this season as well. What do you make? Is it there cause for concern? His style of play and his impact goes far beyond scoring. We know that. But is there anything you've seen from his play that may be a red flag, or is this just kind of what Tyrese Halliburton is?
It's very interesting that really high-feel, pass-first player is how he would describe himself. Mm-hmm. And I think on a team like the Pacers that has a Pascal Siakam as their consistent scorer, that has a great shooter in Miles Turner, that has other guys who can do stuff with the ball, like an Andrew Nembhard, like a Benedict Mathurin, you know, he sometimes feels, I think, too inclined to get others involved at the expense of maybe his own numbers, his own shot attempts in a way that can help the team but doesn't always help, right? And I think that's something he's fought himself with his whole career. When should he be passing? When should he be distributing? And that kind of feel can come and go in good ways. Early in the season, people were questioning, is he hurt right now during this season? Because it was trending too much the wrong direction. And more recently, it's gone a little bit back to that. He had 3 shot attempts in Portland, his lowest as a Pacer, but has been much better since mid-December in terms of looking like the guy he was last year at times, 2 seasons ago certainly. The 3-pointers are going in. The passing is better. The Pacers' offense when he's out there is way better than it is when he's on the bench, which makes sense because he's a star-level talent. So it's been up and down, and I think that he's working through why that's the case, why some nights it's better than others. I think the Pacers are working through how they can get him the shots that make the most sense for him and help everybody else be as good as possible. But, basically since the Siakam trade, since they traded away Buddy Hield last year, he's kind of wound through a couple different iterations of what he is and what he needs to be for the Pacers. And this year it's continued to be that way. I think they're all kind of trying to figure that out and tailor it together because it has not felt the same as last year, no doubt.
Right. It just seems like last year, you don't want it to be a flash in the pan, right? You don't want it to be lightning in a bottle. They wanted to capitalize on that momentum and make another Eastern Conference Finals run and contend with the New York Knicks, the Boston Celtics, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Hello, how are you? My goodness. What do you make of their contention percentage, I guess, or percent availability or ability to contend with those teams in the Eastern Conference? The Cleveland Cavaliers have only lost 10 games. The Boston Celtics are the reigning champs. The New York Knicks added Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, these are legit contenders in the Eastern Conference. Do the Pacers have enough to get back to that level of success we saw a year ago? Or is it just too early to tell? Has it shaped out that way? There's still a second half of the season to play.
Yeah, it's very hard to answer that given the resume they've showed. If it was college basketball, people would be talking about how many bad losses they have and great wins that they have, which makes considering their playoff chances very peculiar. Last year, they did the same thing. They were very good against good teams in the regular season and struggled against some bad teams. Well, in the postseason, you only play good teams. And so for them, that worked out great. They were good against the Bucks. They found enough answers against the Knicks. They were swept by the Celtics, but Boston has since said that was their hardest series of the playoffs. The Pacers play these teams tough and well. So, yes, they're fourth, and they've deserved that record. It's probably going to be hard for them to move up higher than that in the standings the rest of this season, but they know they can hang with anybody in a series, especially if they have home court advantage, which they didn't have a single time in the postseason last year. So figuring out exactly where they fit in the hierarchy is tough to say because, yeah, it looks like in the regular season they'll finish somewhere between 4 and 6. They'll be in the playoff field for sure. But when it comes time to play these best teams, they've been ready for it. They can adjust. They can strategize. They're always ready for those big games, whatever the setting may be, wherever they may be. And I think they'll know that heading into this postseason this year, too.
It feels like they always rise to the challenge, and I can't stress enough how the environment at Gainbridge Fieldhouse a year ago, how fun that was. Like playoff basketball in Indiana, every home game the Pacers had, it felt like they were set up for success. I don't think they lost until that Boston series at home.
That's correct.
Correct? Yeah, it felt like it was just a huge advantage for them, so that's certainly the goal. Before we get to what kind of to change in the second half, Pascal Siakam, an all-star. He's been everything this team has wanted since he joined this squad. What have you made of his performance? Are him and Tyrese Halliburton the duo that we wanted and expected?
He's so consistent. It's remarkable. I mean, very rarely has an off night or a game where you think, where's Pascal Siakam tonight? And that is remarkable to me. I mean, when he was named an all-star, he only had more than 30 points in a game once this whole season, but he was still averaging over 20 because he's always right in that 22 to 28 range. They know what they're going to get from him on the glass, as a passer, as a defender, as a scorer, and that is so important for any head coach. They love consistent players.
Yes. That's
a guy they know and they can put out there what they're going to provide and how it's going to go. And he's a great leader. He's been a champion before. He's one of the older guys on the team. Everybody respects his voice. I think especially so because last year he kept them up even when they were playing poor in the postseason, and he was right. They started to play better and got through it. So very well respected, very talented, exactly what they need at the 4, and plays very well with Tyrese Halliburton, right? They're very good foils. They have very different strengths on the offensive end that makes it hard to defend the Pacers on a given night, and it's very enjoyable to watch. I think they enjoy playing off of each other. Certainly there's a reason that they try to have one or both of them on the floor for all 48 minutes. So a very much deserving all-star, and it all comes down to consistency, which, we talked about how it's felt like 2 different seasons packed into one.
Right.
They really need players like that.
Yeah, no question about it. Pascal Siakam's been great. Benedict Mathurin, I just feel like he's a star in the making, no question about it. Nemhard's defense, I mean, if these guys can stay healthy, and of course Miles Turner bringing what he can bring, and Tyrese Halliburton being the selfless player that he is, right? The makings are there for a team to hopefully make a sustained run. But that leads us to our final point here. What is it that you need to see from this team in the second half to feel good going into the postseason? I think postseason is obviously the goal, obviously the bare minimum here. Having home court advantage is what this team wants and where they're trending right now, top 4 in the East. But what needs to change, if anything, or just continue for this team in the second half?
Yeah, I think Tyrese Halliburton's play will be the biggest story down the stretch. If he can find just a little bit higher of a level or even just a little more consistency, they'd feel great about the direction they're headed, because everyone else seems locked into their role or what they're supposed to be doing, how many minutes they're going to play, and Halliburton's going to play a lot. He's excellent, but it has come up and down this year. If he can show some level of 40% shooting for a full month and great distributing and no nights where he's completely shut down from a shot attempts perspective, that would feel great for the Pacers to know that what he's going to provide in the playoffs is there, that he can be that player he's been the last couple of years, and he mostly has been, especially the last month and a half, but some more reassurance would be nice, and really figuring out their rotation and who they are. They just changed their starting 5. Benedict Mathurin coming off the bench right now, but that's really helped him. He's played very well since doing so, and the lineup they're starting now is the one they had in the postseason. If that group can start clicking again with Aaron Nesmith healthier back in the mix, that could go a long way in establishing what they're going to be come playoff time. I think that's what they're going to focus on down the stretch, is becoming that team again.
Right, that bench play last postseason was huge.
Massive.
For this team. So Tyrese Halliburton, we're of course keep an eye on him. Pacers second half of the season, they get a much needed break for the All-Star break coming up. 30-23, 4th in the East. They're going to see if they can rise those rankings or at least stay put, get that home court advantage, and we'll see if we can have another fun playoff run here in Indianapolis. All right, that's Tony East. You can watch his content, Locked on Pacers, on WTHR+. That's where this whole entire sit-down will be. You can stream Mr. East's content. I'm sure you will come away very satisfied. He does an awesome, awesome job. So we'll have much more content here on WTHR+, and of course on the air as well. And you can, of course, visit WTHR.com. Dominic Miranda, Tony East. We'll see you next time. Talking Pacers.